Have you ever posted something online and then checked your phone every 5 minutes waiting for likes? Maybe you told a joke in a group chat and secretly hoped everyone would react. Or maybe someone didn't reply to your message for a few hours, and suddenly your brain started creating a whole Netflix drama about why they hate you. If any of that sounds familiar, congratulations. You're human, because whether we admit it or not, almost all of us crave validation. But here's the weird part. Even people who constantly say, "I don't care what others think," usually care at least a little. So why do we crave validation so much? Why does a compliment feel amazing, a criticism sting for days, and a tiny red heart on social media somehow make us feel important? And why can the search for validation sometimes become a trap? Let's find out. To understand validation, we have to go back thousands of years. Imagine you're living in a small tribe. There are no smartphones, no followers, no comments section. No one is posting pictures of their breakfast. Life is simple, but survival depends on one thing: being accepted by the group. If the tribe liked you, you stayed safe. If the tribe rejected you, things got dangerous very quickly. You might lose protection, food, or support. In other words, being accepted wasn't just nice. It was necessary. And because humans evolved in those conditions, our brains became extremely sensitive to social approval. Today, getting unfollowed won't get you eaten by a tiger, but your brain still reacts as if social acceptance is incredibly important. That's why rejection can feel surprisingly painful. In fact, studies have found that social rejection activates some of the same brain regions involved in physical pain, which explains why being left unseen can feel like getting emotionally punched in the face. Your brain doesn't always know the difference between physical danger and social danger. It just knows something feels wrong. Now here's where things get interesting. Validation is actually not a bad thing. In fact, it's completely normal. Imagine you spend hours preparing for an exam. You get a good result. Your parents praise you. That feels good, and it should. Or maybe you work hard at football practice and your coach notices your improvement. Again, that feels good. Validation becomes a problem only when it turns into a requirement instead of a bonus. Think of validation like dessert. Dessert is great. Nobody complains about dessert. But if dessert becomes your entire diet, you're going to have problems. The same thing happens psychologically. When external approval becomes your main source of self-worth, life starts getting complicated. Because now your happiness depends on other people. And that's a risky investment. People are inconsistent. One day they praise you. The next day they're busy. One day your post gets hundreds of likes. The next day it gets ignored. If your confidence depends entirely on those reactions, your emotions start riding a roller coaster designed by a sleep-deprived engineer. Up, down, and you never feel stable. Social media has made this even more intense. For most of human history, people compared themselves to maybe a few dozen people around them. Today, you can compare yourself to millions. Within 5 minutes, you can see someone richer than you, smarter than you, fitter than you, more successful than you, and somehow younger than you while doing all of it. It's like entering a competition you never signed up for. And because our brains naturally compare ourselves to others, validation starts feeling more valuable. We begin measuring our worth through numbers: likes, views, followers, comments, shares. The problem is that numbers are easy to count, but terrible at measuring human value. Imagine judging a friendship by how many selfies you've taken together, or measuring intelligence by how many pens someone owns. It doesn't really make sense. Yet we often do something similar online. And here's another strange thing. The more validation we receive, the more we often want. You would think getting praise would completely satisfy us. But that's not usually what happens. Instead, our brains adapt. A compliment that once felt amazing becomes normal. 100 likes become expected. Then suddenly you need 200. Then 500. Then 1,000. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. Basically, humans are really good at getting used to things. It's the reason your dream phone eventually becomes just your phone. And it's the reason external validation often feels temporary. No matter how much you get, the feeling doesn't last forever. This creates a cycle. You get validation. You feel good. The feeling fades. You seek more validation. Repeat. It's like drinking salty water when you're thirsty. For a moment it seems helpful, but it never truly satisfies you. Now let's talk about something many people don't realize. People who constantly seek validation are not necessarily insecure. Sometimes they're simply trying to answer a question that all humans ask. Am I enough? It's one of the deepest questions we have. Am I smart enough? Attractive enough? Successful enough? Talented enough? Interesting enough? And because those questions feel uncomfortable, we often ask the world to answer them for us. We look for reassurance, compliments, approval, recognition. But there's a problem. Other people can give temporary answers. They can't give permanent ones. Because if you don't believe you're enough internally, no amount of external praise will fully convince you. It's like trying to fill a bucket that has a hole in the bottom. You keep pouring more in, but it never stays full. That's why some incredibly successful people still struggle with self-doubt, and why some ordinary people seem surprisingly confident. Confidence isn't simply about how much validation you receive. It's about how much validation you require. The people who appear most secure aren't usually the ones getting the most approval. They're often the ones who don't need constant approval to feel okay. And that brings us to one of the biggest misunderstandings about confidence. Many people think confidence means not caring what anyone thinks. That's not true. Humans are social creatures. Of course we care. The goal isn't to stop caring completely. The goal is balance. Healthy confidence sounds like this. I appreciate your approval, but I don't depend on it. That's a powerful place to be. Because now compliments feel good, but criticism doesn't destroy you. Success feels exciting, but failure doesn't define you. You can learn from feedback without becoming controlled by it. And ironically, when people stop desperately chasing validation, they often become more attractive, more authentic, and more confident. Why? Because they're finally acting like themselves instead of performing for an audience. Think about the most genuine person you know. Chances are they're not constantly trying to impress everyone. They're just being themselves. And people naturally respect that. So if you ever catch yourself checking your phone for the 10th time, worrying about what everyone thinks, or feeling disappointed because someone didn't give you the approval you wanted, remember this. Wanting validation is normal. Your brain was built for social connection. But your worth is bigger than someone else's opinion. A like doesn't create your value. A compliment doesn't create your value. And a criticism doesn't destroy your value. Those things can reflect parts of who you are, but they don't define who you are. The healthiest form of validation is when external approval becomes a bonus rather than a necessity. Because at the end of the day, the person you'll spend the most time with isn't your followers, your friends, your teachers, or your coworkers. It's you. And learning to trust your own opinion might be the most valuable validation you'll ever receive. So the next time you're waiting for someone else to tell you that you're enough, maybe remind yourself first. Because sometimes the approval you've been searching for everywhere else has been sitting inside you all along.